how many doctors do you think are proponents or advocates of vitamin supplementation? Very many? Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think most physicians, medical doctors, are not advocates of vitamin supplementation? What is your, yeah?
The vitamin companies don't give them money.
Okay, vitamin companies don't give them money, good, yeah.
They're not trained properly.
Okay, they're not trained in it, true. What else? Okay, it hurts them. How would it hurt their business?
They lose their customers. They're not sick.
Right, okay, so there may be, so you think there's a relationship between good nutrition and vitamin supplementation and health? So you think people could be healthier if they take vitamins and minerals and eat correctly, and that might mean they have less disease, which might mean you need to see the doctor less, which means the doctor doesn't have as much business.
They doesn't have a job anymore.
Yeah, and the pharmaceutical companies don't have as much business. Well, I think that's right, and this is how it happened in my life. I went to University of Texas Med School, did a year of surgery, had 3 or 4 kids at the time. I said, you know, I got to make a living, and I'm working myself to the ground. I got these kids crying at home, so I went out and went into emergency medicine for 5 years and practiced emergency medicine. Then I opened up a center in the north side of town. My dad had a building, and he said, son, why don't you open up your office in this building? I said, okay. Opened up a day and night clinic over on the north side of town on 45. I lived over here on the west side, but I was on the north side. And I opened that up for about 8 years. I was there starting in 81 till 89. And I'll never forget, this little lady came over to my office from the retirement center one day in late 87, early 88, and she sat down, first person I saw on the day, and she sat down in room 1, and I sat down beside her and said, Mr. Jones, how are you feeling? And she said, doctor, ever since I threw away all the medicine you're giving me, I feel like $1 million, with a big smile on her face. I went, and it just struck me like a ton of bricks. I thought to myself, you know, she's smarter than me and all the other doctors know and all the other patients, because she knows these drugs make people feel sick. And my dad had taught me for years, and he wasn't a doctor, he was an entrepreneur, but very successful. But he said, son, don't poison your patients like all the other doctors do. Over and over, he'd tell me that, don't poison your patients like the other doctors do. Don't poison your patients like the other doctors do. So that struck me right there, you know, it just hit me. And how would doctors poison patients? Did doctors give poisons to patients? Do they? Not intentionally. Okay. Are drugs that we take poisons? Are the drugs that are prescribed poisons? Okay. Well, does anybody know why they may be poisons? And I'm talking about blood pressure medication. I'm talking about everything, even antibiotics and cholesterol. Well, yes, ma'am.
Is that why they tell us not to flush them down the sink or the toilet?
So we don't kill all the animals, right?
They've got chemicals in them.
They're chemicals, and so in our body, when we have put a chemical, a foreign chemical that didn't ever exist before in nature, what organ in our body detoxifies that chemical? The liver, okay? So the liver detoxifies. All the drugs that are prescribed by mainstream medicine all have to be detoxified by the liver. Detoxified. So what do you detoxify? You detoxify a toxin, right? Okay, if you looked up in Webster's dictionary the definition of toxin, what would it say the number one definition of a toxin is? It says poison. A toxin is a poison. So when we take drugs are literally, by definition, they're toxins, they're poisons. And so that's why the body has to detoxify. That's why if you take certain medication, doctor makes you come back every month and get your blood, get your liver checked, especially on cholesterol medication, anti-cholesterol, statin drugs, because it can cause damage to the liver and burns up the liver. And the next thing you know, you got liver cancer, you got cirrhosis or hepatitis of the liver caused by drugs. So those drugs are chemicals.